Doesn't make sense, but it doesn't matter. It was so bad. I'm either very nonchalant about a book or I absolutely love it. There's usually no in between. Does it look better like this? Does my hair look better like this? What is up, beautiful people? Hopefully you can't hear the fan on in the background because it's not that loud. It's not that good of a fan for it to be making noise, but I just wanted to give a quick heads up just in case it is making any noise. I'm going to talk about all the books that I've read so far this year, but as you can see here, I have a literal list of all the books I've read and my reviews and everything like that. So we are going to get started. The first book that I read this year is First Time Caller, and the premise of that book is basically this woman, the main female character, the FMC's daughter, calls up this online talk show like radio station, and basically is talking about her mum like struggles with finding a partner because she wants her mum to find a partner, but her mum obviously is not ready to get into the dating world, and she's content with her family at the moment. And the FMC and the host of the radio station start to kind of like talk a little bit because this one episode kind of blows up and everyone's so interested in her life now, so they invite her onto the talk show. I rated this book a 2.25 stars, and it wasn't necessarily anything bad with the writing, but I wasn't connected to the two characters, and I had also just gone like 6 months without really reading a romance, and I just didn't really want to read or think about romances. So I don't know why I picked up this book. I think I was just in the mood for something light and fluffy after reading like Atmosphere and Big Beautiful Life in December. Like I was reading some heavy books, so that's why I did pick up First Time Caller, but it just wasn't the book for me. Then right after First Time Caller, I let my mom pick out some books for me to read, and it was supposed to be a reading vlog, but I was doing assignments at the time, so I never actually picked up the camera properly to really update you guys about the books that I was reading. I do still have some clips, so if you guys want to see that, again, let me know. But my mom did choose Yellowface, and I gave that book a 4-star. Yellowface is essentially about this author who is discontent with where her career is at the moment, and she has a friend that I believe they went to uni together, and she's essentially jealous of the path that her friend is on at the moment, and she goes over to her apartment because she's celebrating her friend's like book release or something along those lines, and her friend, you know, passes away in a very like unfortunate turn of events, and the FMC steals her friend's work, and her friend's work is literally about like I think Chinese historical fiction, but it's also based on like real life events. I enjoyed the plot of this book. I enjoyed the fact that we were in the FMC's head, and obviously when she's speaking and she's speaking in first person, she's saying like preposterous things, but you know that she's not BSing you because you're in her head, and it's like she's talking to herself, so you're like, wow, this person genuinely thinks like that. And I also like some of the subjects that it touches on, because I personally feel like racism and just like the way like microaggressions, things like that, it's not heavily spoken about in books enough. Almost like authors want to shy away from that, when it's like not everything is rainbows and sunshine. So I did really enjoy this book, and I wish I had picked it up sooner, but I just didn't think I was mature enough as a reader to pick it up. And when I was reading it as well, a lot of people at work were like, oh my gosh, how are you liking this book? Some guy was like, oh yeah, my girlfriend was reading that book, and I was like, oh, did she like it? He was like, I don't know. And I was like, okay, that's fair. But it was really nice. Like I feel like I connected with the people at my work through this book even, which just goes to show you how widely appreciated this book is. Then the next book that my mom picked out for me, which I did have on my physical TBR, was The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I was very excited to pick this up because I just read Atmosphere in December, so I had really high expectations coming into this book. The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo is essentially about this woman who, I don't know why, but I carried on just like picturing her as like Madonna, not Madonna. I always get these two confused. Oh my gosh. I was picturing her as Marilyn Monroe for some reason. That was just like the type of stardom that I was imagining. But imagine a figure like Marilyn Monroe, but she has been through 7 husbands, and she finally wants someone to write her autobiography after essentially closing up from the world like 30 years ago. So she chooses this specific writer to do her autobiography, and we're getting past and present. Past being, you know, Evelyn's background and how she rose to stardom and how she went through the different husbands, and she kind of breaks it down as well. I would say one thing about this book is that it was really interesting at the beginning when it came to like talking about her husbands and how she went through them, but then it slowly almost got repetitive. But I will also say that the topic spoken about again in this book was also greatly appreciated, and I would also check the trigger warnings because I was not expecting to read about, you know, heavier topics in this book. But I'm glad that it was discussed, and even the way how she was talking about it, like it just felt so real. Like I was genuinely crying at work while reading this book because the heavier topics that she spoke about, it's just, I don't know how else to explain it, but it felt like I was talking to someone who had genuinely gone through it, and it was like a real life person. Like this is not a fictional character. Then next, I allowed my mom to pick up 2 or 3 books, I believe, at a bookstore, and the first book that she chose was The Naturals. The Naturals is basically about these teenagers who are really smart, they have really high IQs, and they essentially are working for the FBI to solve cold cases. I did give this book a 3 stars, and I did enjoy it. I think it was a really nice YA book to read quickly. My only thing is I feel like it took us so long to get into the actual plot, but I do understand that it's a series, and that's just naturally how the first book is going to be in a series. But like I said, yeah, I did really enjoy it. I don't really have anything much to say when it comes to The Naturals. It was just kind of fun. I will pick up the second book, maybe more in the fall. I think that would be like the perfect time to read it because I read this in like January or February, around that time. Then we had Half of a Yellow Sun, which was my first 5 stars of 2026. My mom did pick this up for me, and I was already eyeing this book, but again, I didn't think I was mature enough as a reader. But this year I have definitely tried to read as many different genres as possible and put myself out there in books, like especially when it comes to books that I personally think are more challenging or would be more difficult for me. But Half of a Yellow Sun basically follows two sisters, almost like a family essentially, during the Biafran War, just before the Biafran War, and then throughout, and then after the Biafran War as well. And if you're not sure what the Biafran War is, it's basically the Nigerian civil war where the Igbo tribe, and I can't remember the exact name of the tribe, but the tribe that's very close / lives on Igbo land, separated from Nigeria shortly after they were granted independence. And I am also Nigerian, specifically Igbo, so it really helps me connect with my culture. And I don't fully speak Igbo, but even just recognizing certain phrases that my nan would say to me, or just like certain phrases that I would see in Hollywood movies growing up, it just really helps me connect. And I think that's one of the main reasons why I gave it a 5 star. I would also again check the trigger warnings. I cried at the ending of this book. I was so distraught. I know there is a movie out, so I do want to read that book, not read the book, I do want to watch the movie. But this book, even though it was fiction, you could definitely tell the amount of research that went into it, and how she really captured the experiences of Igbos going through this like really distraught treatment, and it was just so hard. And then on top of that, like seeing the FMC, who was friends with a Yoruba man at the time, and you know, obviously a lot of the time Igbos and Yorubas clash, like that's one of the main tribes that tend to clash. Hearing how the Igbo FMC was suffering during the war, and the Yoruba man was like trying to protect his friend, but you could just see that the politics was getting into the way of their friendship as well, I think just added to the realism, and I really enjoyed it. Like I have nothing negative to really say about this book. Like this book was just, I don't know, it's almost like, it feels to me almost like, you know, like a memoir. Like you can't really rate the book, but if I had to rate it, I'm still gonna give it 5 stars anyway. The next book that I chose while myself finished picking my books was Dark Matter. At this time everyone was speaking about it, and obviously I think there was a series on Apple TV which I did say I would watch, but I just never watched. Anyway, the next series was Dark Matter, and I did really enjoy the book. I rated it at 4.5 stars. It is a sci-fi book, and it's basically about this guy who, the main character, the MMC, oh my gosh, that's what the main male character essentially makes a machine in a different timeline in which he no longer has his family, and his family isn't there, and he doesn't like, he's not currently living the life that he lives in timeline A. Okay, let's just simplify it like that. The guy from timeline B comes in, kidnaps him, ships him back to timeline B, and it's like, you have to live my life, I want the life that you're living. And he's just trying to get back to his family, essentially. This book, I can tell, obviously, like, I'm a Marvel fan, so I understand the concept of timelines and things like that, but when I tell you, it was explained in a way where I could tell, yo, this person's really smart, but I didn't feel dumb. Next was Silver Elite, which was my second 5-star of 2026. I will never ever shut up about this book. I don't care. This book, top tier fantasy. I simply don't care. It's such a good book. You are following Ren, and Ren has like telepathic powers, and people with telepathic powers are essentially unalived in this kingdom or sent away, shipped away into slave camps because they deem them as less than human. Like, they are an abomination, they shouldn't have these powers, whatnot. She essentially goes undercover. Okay, yeah, she goes undercover. She gets recruited to train like in the army of the current government that want to unalive people like her, and she happens to fall in love with the commander's son. That's all I'm gonna say. That's all I'm gonna say. The romance, top tier. The concept, not that hard to follow with. And I liked her. I liked Ren. I genuinely really liked Ren. I liked reading about them. I was like, guys, I was just having the best time of my life when I was reading this book. I have no complaints. I really loved it, and it kind of encouraged me to get more into fantasy, which you will see throughout the rest of the books that I'm about to tell you about. One thing as well before I go into the next book is that the plot twist was also really good in Silver Elite. Like, I wasn't expecting it. I was shocked. I was like, what the heck? And I had to wait a month for the next one to be released, and I was even complaining about the little wait. I then picked up Daisy Jones and the Six because I wanted to see if I could get the same feeling that I got when I was reading Atmosphere. I did not really enjoy Daisy Jones and the Six. I felt like it got slightly repetitive, but before I dive into that, this is the synopsis of the book. So you essentially have Daisy Jones, and she's a singer, and then you have the Six, which is the band, and they were separate at the beginning. Daisy Jones kind of started her career as a singer, but like people weren't really taking her seriously, and she didn't have, I believe, the best upbringing from what I remember. And then the band started off when they were in high school or college, and they almost sort of blew up, and their producer was like, hey, I have this perfect person that you should collab with. You have Daisy, you have the Six. They collabed. That is not the best description of the book, but I could barely really remember like the actual synopsis, but that's the main points that I think you should know when you're going into it. I was really expecting something just like fun and just like, I don't know what I was expecting. I was expecting like kind of 70s rock, just a bit of fun, but it got repetitive. The ending wasn't necessarily satisfying as well, and I didn't really enjoy it. Like, I don't know, there was like minimal character development. It was again like past and present timeline, which I did enjoy the present timeline, I'm not gonna lie, because you would get some hints about what's gonna happen in the past, like, if that makes any sense. Like, oh, they're talking about someone, it's like, wait, what happened to this person, you know what I mean? But I just didn't enjoy the book. I didn't like it. I'm sorry. I rated it a 2.25 stars, and yeah, it just kind of put me off reading any of Taylor Jenkins' reads for a little bit. I was like, maybe she's just not the author for me. But yeah, I'm not going to bash the book too much. I'm not going to beat a dead horse. Next, we have Dungeon Crawler Carl. Dungeon Crawler Carl is basically, there's an alien invasion, and this guy is looking after his girlfriend's cat. And this big alien voice is like, hey, if you don't get into this portal, and it's like all over the world, and everyone who was in a building, they were unalive straight away. And Carl happens to be outside, and they're like, if you don't get into this portal, you will essentially perish. Like, you have to get in if you want to try and survive, and you have to win this game as well. So he gets in, and he now has to go through the different levels and try to win, while also trying to entertain the alien audience as well, because it's like a reality TV show type of game. Less so like reality and sitting down, but there's like obviously courses and obstacles involved, but you want to capture the audience's attention because they can send you money and gifts that can help you in the game. At the start, this book was so good and so fun, but it quickly became very repetitive, and I feel like there were so many things thrown in our way that we had to remember. We had to remember like the points being deducted. Oh, if you do this, it like all the rules and everything, just everything. Like, the concept of the game was again very well thought out. I'll give that to the author. However, it was also very just like repetitive, and it just also became a lot. It almost felt like a chore for me to have to remember all this information at one go. It was one of my biggest disappointments of this year because I had such high expectations for this book. I was so excited to read this book, but again, I don't like bashing books. I chose not to continue the series. If you think this would be for you, go ahead and pick it up, but it personally was not for me. I then went back to my roots and I did pick up a literary fiction. I picked up The Wedding People and I had such a great time reading this book. This book is basically about the FMC who goes to her almost like dream destination, and she wants to, you know, and she bumps into the bride and she tells the bride straight up, this is what I plan to do on your wedding weekend. And the bride is like, that's not gonna happen. You actually have to be out of your mind. That's not happening. But not in like a loving way, like, oh sweet, you don't do that, but almost like, baby, this is about me. I would definitely, like I said, check for trigger warnings. The synopsis of the book is already crazy, but I had such a good time reading this. I really enjoyed the dynamic between the FMC and the bride. I just liked how honest and real they could be with each other as well. And I also liked the ending. I don't know, I enjoyed this book. I rated it at 5 stars. I have no complaints. I did also recently pick up The Adults by Alison Epoch, I believe is how you pronounce her last name, and I'm just excited to read her other books. Like, the book, so good. Like, I just remembered why I love reading. When I was reading The Wedding People, I was like, this is why I love reading. Next, I read Saving Noah, and I just want to say, if you have seen Boy Mom TikToks, this is Boy Mom TikTok in a book. This book irritated me so bad, but I had to see it through. It's like watching a train wreck and you just can't look away. We have Noah in the title, who would have thought, and he is accused of essaying girls. I believe they were like 7, like around that age, and Noah is like 14, 15, whatever. Like, you get what I'm trying to say? So what he done was wrong, and his mom is essentially like, okay, yeah, what Noah done was wrong, but like, he can't be, I'm just, you know what I'm trying to say, he can't be a weirdo. Let's just say that, okay? He can't be a weirdo. Cool. She is in straight up denial. When I tell you, you are following the trajectory of Noah on his journey, because he has to go to rehabilitation. You're watching how his mom deals with it, you're watching how his dad deals with it, you're watching how the community deals with it, and I understand the initial shock and everything like that, and feeling betrayed because like no one wants to talk to them anymore, but he also wrecks the whole community. To get you should not get, babe, you should not get. This is the book that will make me crash out, because I kid you not, the ending, dumb. Like, it was so bad. The mom, no character development. She was saying my son for the longest times. I kid you not. She was not sympathetic towards the victims. She basically just was trying to minimize what he done and was trying to make it seem like, well, he's bad, but he's not like that bad. Like, I kid you not. Yeah. I read it because I was like, hopefully it would get better. I genuinely don't know what the author was trying to do, and I also don't know why her agency would let her publish a book like that. That's what I'm gonna say. That's it. That's it. I'm not talking about this book anymore, because as you can see, I'm not. I can't. Before I move on, I will say I rated it a 0.25. If I could rate this book a 0 star, I would rate it a -10. That doesn't make sense, but it doesn't matter. It was so bad. Then I did read Hooked, which is still presented as a thriller, but it's not as like a scary thriller in my opinion anyway. So you essentially follow this woman who gets obsessed with her favorite food blogger and just starts to act very weird. And it's set in Japan, and I will say that it was really interesting seeing the relationship, or like how significant female friendships are in Japan, and just like the cultural difference as well. It was really fun, but like reading it at the beginning, but I will say again, it got very repetitive, and I got kind of bored, and there was like minimal character development, and like I didn't know who I was really supposed to feel like sorry for, if that makes any sense, because you're obviously thinking, Janae, why wouldn't you feel sorry for the victim? But like, she was also, I don't know, there was just like some weird things that she was doing as well, and the ending wasn't necessarily, it wasn't necessarily like a resolution, I would say. Like, technically yes, things were resolved, but like, because there was no character development or like nothing drastic happened, I kind of feel like, oh well, we're kind of back where we started essentially. I did rate Hooked 3 stars because it wasn't a bad book. I just, again, it wasn't for me. I then remembered my roots and I did go back again to Lit Fic. I did pick up My Year of Rest and Relaxation and I rated this at 3.5 stars. I listened to this on audiobook. It was very nice. I felt like it was a fast-paced book, obviously because it was so short, but you essentially follow this girl who has been through some traumatic things. Both of her parents passed away, I believe, and she's young, she's got a bunch of money, and she just feels extremely depressed, and she essentially is just always trying to sleep. She tries to sleep for an entire year and just not have to worry about like her feelings essentially. And I feel like the main character, I don't want to say that she was nonchalant because that's not the medical term that's used, but you know when like someone's just really depressed and they don't necessarily care about what's going on around them, or just they're just very numb, I would say it was the central word. And I feel like she was just such a nice FMC to witness, to read about. And even the relationship with her best friend wasn't necessarily the most healthy relationship, but I kind of liked how honest and blunt it was, and I really did enjoy the book. I think it was just a nice little like palette cleanser. Then the next book that I read was Sweet Heat, and this was my first black romance, which is kind of crazy to say because I am 20 and it's like, baby, oh, what's going on? I was trying to go back into romance because I haven't really picked up a romance book, like binge romances, in so long, because I was like, yeah, I'll give it a go, and why not be with my people when I give it a go. This book is basically about two people that met in uni, and they were dating in uni, and then they broke up, and it kind of really affected the FMC, and she hasn't really heard anything from him in like such a long time, and it completely like destroyed her. Friends have saw the whole breakup and everything like that, but their uni friends who they stayed really close with throughout their whole like adult life is getting married. Her best friend, like one of her female best friends, and one of the MMC's male best friends, so they obviously have to come together and be amicable for their best friend's marriage. I really did enjoy the banter between the two characters. However, I didn't feel connected to them. I wasn't rooting for them, but I also wasn't rooting against them. The only thing that was really like annoying about the book is that the male main character's name is Malachi, and that's literally my brother's name. So whenever the girl was flirting with him and she would say his name, I was like, get the frick out, like I can't right now. That's on me though, that's literally on me for picking up a book that has my brother's name in it. I did rate Sweet Heat 3.5 stars as well. And then I had Funny Story. Funny Story was a 3.5 star book for me. It was about this woman, and her fiance is having a bachelor party, and he's like, I want to invite my childhood female best friend, and she's like, yeah babe, go ahead. Why? Because she trusts him. And what does the female best friend do? On his bachelor party, she says, I've been in love with you this whole entire time, we should be together. And this idiot, her fiance, says, sure, I'll leave my fiance and be with you. So the FMC moves in with the MMC. He was also dating the childhood best friend, and they're essentially just trying to grieve their relationships, and it's just they kind of obviously fall in love, la-di-da-di-da. I wasn't necessarily expecting to like this book, just because I know like technically they didn't cheat, but I just didn't like the backstory. Like it was very entertaining, but I just have a thing when it comes to like anything cheating and anything just like remotely about betraying your partner's trust. Like it just always hurts, like it physically hurts me, and I always cringe when I read it in a book as well. So I didn't think I was really going to enjoy this book, but I did have a good time reading it. I did enjoy the characters together. Like I said, like I was rooting for them. They made sense, they balanced each other out. I haven't necessarily read a romance book like that like in such a long time, where I'm like, the MMC and the FMC balance each other out so well, and like I genuinely want to see them be together. I then read Beautiful Ugly, and I gave it 4 stars. Beautiful Ugly is basically about this man whose wife goes missing like randomly while he's on the phone. She sees something in the middle of the road, and she's like, babe, I'm gonna see like this person playing on the middle of the road, I need to go check them out. And he's like, no, don't do that. And then boom, she goes missing, and no one knows what's happened. And his career as an author is also declining, and he basically goes away to this island in Scotland, I believe, to try and write a book and to try and see if he can re-kick his career to be an author. But weird things start happening is all I'm gonna say. All I have in my notes is, what the frick was this? Plot was good, book bad, and major plot holes. That's literally it. The plot twist was terrible. It just felt like a cheap shot. It felt like a shot in the dark, and just hoping that the readers were gullible enough to not really, you know, think things through and clock that it was written poorly. Yeah, I mean, I did like the unique little thing that she done at the end, which if I say it, it's gonna spoil it, so I'm not gonna say it, but it is said at the end and like after the plot twist. So I was like, oh, that's pretty unique. I haven't seen an author do that. But besides that, I wouldn't recommend this book. I'm not gonna lie. And then Broken Dove, the second book in the Silver Elite trilogy, came out, so you know I had to read it. This book was not a 5-star, but I did give it 4 stars. I did miss being with Ren and Cross, and I really enjoy seeing them together and being back in Ren's mind again. However, Ren was not the same as the first book. I don't know, I just didn't really enjoy her as much in the second book. But I loved the relationship between Ren and Xavier. I had like a really good time. I just loved it. Like, I loved the like found family as well in the book as well. I think that was like a really big reason why I enjoyed the first book. And then I was in a big fantasy mood, so I did pick up The Will of Many. I gave this book 4 stars. Obviously you've probably heard about The Will of Many, but if you have not, then it's basically about this person named Viz, and he is trying to take down the hierarchy. And the hierarchy is basically like, imagine a pyramid scheme, like a pyramid, but they are the government, and you have to cede your will, so your mental strength and your physical strength as well, to the higher ups. And the higher you up in the pyramid, you've got like millions of people ceding to you essentially. But Viz's parents were unalived when his kingdom, I guess, was essentially colonized by the hierarchy, and he wants to tear it down from the inside. The book was very complicated, and I did get confused a lot of the times, but it's one of those books where if you don't think too hard, then you understand what's happening, which I know is like really crazy to say. But the plot twist was again out of this world. I feel like I need a video to like dumb it down, you know, those like recap videos. That's essentially what I need. But I've given myself a few months before I read the next book, which is The Strength of the Few. I then read Deep Cuts. I saw Haley Fan recommend this book, and the way how she spoke about this book genuinely made me want to pick it up, and I was so excited because it kind of just felt like 2000s white girl rom-com and just like a bunch of music involved. I'm not the biggest fan, like I'm not like a nerd when it comes to music, even though I wish I was, but I was like, you know what, this book should be like, it still sounds really good, so why not pick it up? That was my bad, because I did rate it 0.25 stars. The dynamic, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. You have Percy and you have Joe, and they meet in college, and Joe wants to be a musician, and Percy is just really good at figuring out what would be good in what would be good in a song and what wouldn't be good in a song. Like, she can listen to a song and be like, oh, you should add that, you should take away this instrumental, do this, do that. She's just very talented. She just has a natural gift. Now, with that being said, Joe uses Percy throughout their entire relationship, and we follow them from uni/college all the way until they're like in their 30s. And when I tell you, that man just used her. He literally just used her. I did not like their dynamic one bit. I did not root for them one bit. I was rooting for Percy to get her head out of Joey's ass. Sorry. But then I stopped rooting for her. I was like, baby girl, if you want to walk into a brick wall, I'm gonna let you, because I can't anymore. I didn't enjoy this work. I didn't. The ending was stupid. The characters were dumb. I then picked up Loved One, which was a book that everyone was speaking about. I actually currently have this book on my TBR, but well, not my TBR card. This is also in a reading vlog, and I did rate Loved One 3 stars. You are following the FMC who bumps into one of her friends, or one of her exes I should say, that she dated when she was in uni, and she sleeps with him, and then a month later he passes away in just a tragic accident. And you're following her grief as well. You're like watching her grieve, but she's not able to really grieve properly, because people just think like, oh, you guys were friends in uni, or like exes in uni, and you guys became friends like again recently, but they don't really understand the true nature of her grief. I was just following her on this journey, and I feel like there were so many good quotes in that book that I really did enjoy, and I did connect in some ways where I've never lost anyone in terms of like someone passing away, but I I felt like I could also connect with her, if that makes any sense. Well, it was written, it was just so beautiful where you have no choice but to connect with the main character, if that makes any sense. I then picked up Lightlark, and Lightlark was also in a reading vlog. Lightlark is essentially about this 6 realms, and like hundreds of years ago a curse was placed on the 6 realms that each have their own distinct powers, and the curse that was placed on them also has a part to play in their powers. You have Isla, the FMC, who is preparing to go to the Centennial, which happens every 100 years as the 6 kingdoms come together to try and break this curse. This would have been my type of book if I was 14, because it does read like a YA book, but there was a scene or two that was definitely not YA, so I am going to judge it like it's an adult book. Then I read Remarkably Bright Creatures, which is going to be in the next reading vlog that I post, but I guess here's a little spoiler. I rated this book 3 stars, I believe. I rated it 3.5 stars. It was nice, funny and sad, just like all mixed together, and I really enjoyed the connection between all of the characters. This book is basically about an octopus who is in an aquarium and he can talk. He is essentially trying to help the FMC who lost her son in a tragic accident. We don't really know what happened when he was only like 19 or 18. You have the different POVs of everyone that lives in the small town, and it's really nice to see, just getting all the different POVs, seeing how everyone connects, and I really did enjoy it. I think the ending was beautiful. I don't know, I loved it, and I loved the quotes as well. And he was the octopus, like his chapters, and his name was Marcellus. His chapters were so funny, and I wish that we had more of him. Like I wish his chapters were a little bit longer, but it just always made you look forward to his chapters as well. So I did really enjoy this book. I then read Normal People because out of my 26 books that I want to read in 2026, I did want to read a Sally Rooney book, but I gave Normal People 3 stars. You have these 2 characters, the FMC and the MMC. The FMC, they're both in college when their relationship starts, but she's treated as like the black sheep, and the MMC is like kind of like popular, things like that. You navigate their relationship or like their dynamics all the way until I think just the ending of university. It essentially reminded me of Deep Cuts, but just done a little bit better, but the ending wasn't necessarily satisfactory, which I guess it could have been intended that way because maybe the characters themselves didn't feel satisfied, things like that. But I just didn't necessarily enjoy the book. It was nice as an audiobook. I did listen to an audio, but I do have the physical copy here, but I didn't love it. Like, I'll be completely honest with you, I didn't love it. I was kind of like just ready for it to be over with, you know, like there was no real substance to it. And I did really enjoy Intermezzo by Sally Rooney. So this is not my first Sally Rooney book, but I've heard from one of my co-workers that I think it's beautiful. No, Beautiful World, Where Are You? Beautiful People, Where Are You? Something along those lines. I don't remember the title of the book, but he said that was one of her better books, so I would probably pick that up next. Yeah, I didn't love it, so I did give it a 3 star. But that is all the books that I've read so far in 2026. Thank you guys so much for watching. I thank you guys for just like clicking on this video, watching it all the way to the end, because I know I've spoken a lot. And if you want to see more vlogs, more reading vlogs, etc., again, just comment, like, everything like that. But yeah, I'm so glad I recorded this video because I've been meaning to record it for a while. I just didn't want to be on camera, but here I am. But thank you guys so much for watching. I will now be signing out. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye. I did not like that.